Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. The slant.
Yeah, but isn't this the unplugged version? I don't know. I think it's the unplugged version.
All right, Polly, let's go.
Polly here on the Latino Slant. We are doing a retro review of the 2018 film El Chicano. Now, this is a straight-up action movie starring Raúl Castillo, whose biggest credit to note is probably the show Vida, and then a co-starring role on The Army of the Dead, or Army of Dead, Zack Snyder's movie. Anyways, he is the lead actor. So let's show you some images, and we will go non-spoilers with this, and then hit spoilers. This film is directed by and written by Ben Hernandez Bray. The interesting thing about Ben Hernandez is the fact that he is a stuntman. And he found his way out of the kind of like, crazy barrios of San Fernando, I believe, and made his way into Hollywood, which I think is a pretty great story right there.
Bad things happen.
Now, with El Chicano, it was inspired by Hernandez's true-to-life brother losing his life to gang violence. He kind of was inspired to write about that. This is his first ever film that he's directed. So he took that, then he took the legends, some Aztec legends, and some legends of urban myth legends, as far as the Boogeyman and El Cucuy, and created this story of a kind of barrio, if you will, revolution. Batman, for lack of better words. In fact, it's mentioned a couple times that this, in fact, our lead finds the the ghetto bat cave. So, without spoiling it, let's talk about also too who else is in this. Who else is in this cast? We talked about Raúl Castillo is the lead, and he eventually becomes El Chicano. But also too, his captain is George Lopez. He takes a turn at being a really good Edward James Olmos. I mean, he's pretty serious in this film, which I actually think he does a good job. He pulls it off. I'm not sure what to do next. Also in this cast, you'll see some familiar, how would you say, character actors as far as Noel, playing, Cholos in a lot of different films from Training Day as well. Amy Garcia, who plays his love interest. Rage. And really, that's it. Sal Lopez does play El Gallo, the cartel bad guy from Mexico. But one of these things that there's so many things that I loved about this film. I'm just gonna be honest. It's a very simple story, right? It's not incredibly dense or complicated. It is a story of vengeance and more vengeance, good guys and bad guys, dudes beating the crap out of each other, and then dudes shooting up each other. It is very un-Hollywood. Another thing that I really thought was interesting about this film was the fact that there are no stars in this film, and it's an all Latino cast, which Polly would say, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is because the filmmakers wanted that, no one would fund it. No one would fund it. They had to go out of the norms to get this thing funded. And I believe they got, I'll check. It didn't make that much money in the theater when they did a theater run. But I know it lost money. But maybe over the years it has recouped some of it and it becomes somewhat of a cult classic. This is some kick-ass action. I gotta tell you. So yeah, let's make this. How do you make this small? No, we don't want that. We will get rid of that. And So these, what I appreciate about this film, like I told you, is a very simple vengeance story, almost as if they're reminding Hollywood, hey, this is what a real Batman story is all about. Our lead is a detective, and then we find his origins, and then he becomes El Chicano. El Chicano has been a mythic figure in East LA since the 1940s, donned by different various vigilantes. Love it. Love it. He's against gangs, he's against drug dealers, he has no tolerance at all for them. Again, love it. He's not confused, he's not trying to find himself. He's got a great conflict, we'll explain later in spoilers, but there's resolve and there's rage, and that's what gets him to the end. Another thing that I really loved about this film was the fact that our director and writer was a fight choreographer, and the fighting was awesome. The choreography just kicked absolute butt in this. Wasn't long. I think it's around 2 hours. It moves by really quickly. It's mainly in English. There's some other interesting there's some interesting nods to Chicano history, Mexican American history, and Chicanismo in this, which I will explain later as well. But let's get some images up on here so we can talk a little bit more about some of these characters and some of these actors. Now, last year in 2021, when we did our top Latino actors of the year, we had Raul Castillo highly up there. We had him up there. I'm a rather big fan of this gentleman. I think, in fact, I know he's got what it takes to be a leading man. He's got, good looks for the women, and he's cool enough for the dudes to like say, this guy kicks some butt. Okay, let's get to some photos here, shall we? We're still in non-spoilers. I want to give you a good image. This is a good image of Raul kind of deciding his fate. And this is when he's running after a bad guy in a cemetery during the rain, and he finds a tombstone. And that's actually, that's how they start off the movie as well. And we'll explain this image as well. And there's him donning the mask. Now, the mask, as well as his knife, are mythic Aztec. They have mythic Aztec connections, which is just super dope. Super dope. There he is. Okay. So now let's go to spoilers for this film. Now, Raul Castillo plays a detective whose twin brother, they grew up in East LA, goes one direction, which is direction of being a drug dealer, where he becomes a detective for the LAPD. Now, right off the bat, him and his partner track down a kind of a massacre of drug dealers, of gang members, and they're wondering who did it. All of them have these very kind of cryptic, I want to say, tattoos on their wrists, all revealing the same birth date as Raul's character and his brother, because they're both born on the same day. So that kind of starts freaking him and his partner out, and George Lopez. Also, too, there's nods to the supernatural in this. So it's not just, a vigilante, just a dude taking on and beating up people. It's a guy taking on some Aztec lore, that there's a historical connection and maybe perhaps some superpowers. Not the superpowers, but supernatural powers. Now, the Aztec blade is called a Tepatil. And that blade is super cool. I wonder if we can get let me see if we can find an image of that blade. Know thy enemy. Yeah, that's great. So this is early on where George Lopez is a beat cop, and he's confronting a gang leader at the time. At the beginning of this, there's flashbacks to them as kids, and then George as a younger man trying to police the streets of East LA. And make sure you watch this whole video. You stay with me, because I'm gonna give you a reason why this movie was not successful and why you didn't hear about it. Okay. So eventually, all roads lead for this character to for lack of better words, the ghetto bat cave, where his brother not only has put together, I want to say, a lair, but all the things you need for your superhero costume, with the mask, his bike, and the Aztec connection. Plus, there in the lair, he discovers that his brother has written journals upon journals about the Aztec connection, about how he wants to kind of take down, drug dealers, and it's pretty, it's creepy cool. It's not sinister cool. It's creepy cool. Now, as Raul is trying to find out just exactly who his brother really is and who El Chicano is, he goes to one of the old homeboys in the barrio, Marco Rodriguez. And this character here, he's kind of like the East LA storyteller, maybe even the chorus. So what he does is, not only does he lay a lot of truth and knowledge about what's going on in the streets, but he will interject stories of the history of the Southwest, the history of Los Angeles, to people here right in front of La Virgen de Guadalupe in Islos, just exactly what part of the city this is all about and what does it mean. And it works. And he goes to Marcos's character and basically tells him, look, El Chicano's been around since the 40s, since the Zoot Suit days, so he gives a great backstory. And it's done so well and so simply that you see these kind of like major events in Los Angeles in regards to Latinos and how El Chicano has always been there. So that is really interesting on how he did that. Now, as Raul finds out really who the players are with this gang, we find out that the Verdugo drug cartel from Mexico is systematically coming in and smoking all the fools. Locally, there's a gentleman who he grew up with, and his name is Shotgun. And Shotgun is played very well by, I think is David Castaneda or Daniel Castaneda. And he basically is he's for lack of better words, our bad guy. That's a great image right there. And like I said, the look and feel of this movie, really, I don't even think this movie was done for 15 million, maybe 10 million. I mean, peanuts. And it looked like $1 million. It looked like more than $1 million bucks. It just looked incredible. So at the end of the day, there's a showdown between Shotgun and El Chicano. And Shotgun has made the Mexican cartel think that one of their own was killed by the LAPD. So the Mexican cartel does a really nasty job of killing off some officers and hanging them, a little bit of torture, a little gruesome. And then that's when El Chicano in the kind of like the movie finale, kind of comes in and works his moves. Now, he is mortal, obviously, but he's got great fighting skills as well as skills with the knife, and of course he knows how to use his weapons because he is a detective. So I believe so. Like I said, this is a simple story of good and evil. The word for vengeance in Spanish is venganza. Venganza. And vengazna is used over and over in this. So it reminds me of just how this movie, it's how a Marvel movie should have been. It's how a DC movie, it's how a Batman movie. It's relentless. This man is relentless. He believes so much in doing good and being good for the community, and into as far as ridding of drug cartel and gang violence, that this whole time he has turned his back on his brother because he thought his brother was just a drug dealer. And if we find out he's just smart, I don't want to spoil everything for you. There's a lot that I'm leaving out, some good nooks and crannies, but it is a very straightforward movie. Now, I will say a couple of things in regards to why I think this movie got the shaft, and and there is the director with Kate Del Castillo, and she comes in as a cameo, and you'll see her. Make sure you catch her. She was in the Spanish version of Queen of the South. She's a huge Latin American actress, Kate Del Castillo. Now, my feeling is this, guys. El Chicano didn't check the boxes. It's a very brutal film. It's about drug dealers. It's about vengeance and about crime, about action, dudes being dudes. There's there's the mom and the girlfriend, but they're very small roles because it's about this man and finding the truth about his brother, then fighting the cartel. That's what it's about. So check boxes not checked. He's not a confused man. He's you know, he's very patriotic, which I know people didn't like, because he's he was a cop and he's about America. So there's some interesting dynamics in this writing, because he talks about, the director Hernandez talks about the Chicanismo, as far as what our Chicano history has been since the mid 1800s, and how we've always fought for justice. So there's that one side of the coin, and then the other side of the coin is that I'm a detective, I'm a cop, I'm patriotic, and this is now American soil. And you drug cartel people, you don't belong here, and I will seek vengeance on you. So I get why it didn't. I know why. That is a huge reason why the critics, and really why Hollywood did not embrace this film. You gotta understand, this is an entire Latino cast, written and directed by a Latino who has been in the Hollywood game for decades. Executive produced by Frank Grillo, who's great on his own as far as doing so many great movies. The fact that Hollywood didn't embrace it is not surprising, because of the reasons that I said. There's nothing wokosada about it. This is the flip side. Plus, it flips this thing of like, not we're not hating on our American history. We're embracing it and claiming that East LA is very special to us, and this is our soil, and this is our home, this is our barrio, and that is what El Chicano fights for. Just like with what Batman fought for in Gotham, what Superman fights for in what's the Daily Planet? You guys help me out here. My mind draws a blank, but here there is a superhero, supernatural connection to Aztec myth and a real history of East Los Angeles and the myths that can be created from that. And I thought it was just brilliant. Especially knowing that this filmmaker had to deal with gang violence, death himself with his brother. So that doesn't fit in today's world. But let me tell you, it makes a kick-ass movie, and I highly recommend it. Film is called El Chicano, stars Raul Castillo, who I believe is going to be a huge star. And I hope you check it out. Hit me back when you do. It's available on all streaming services. That is your retro review for El Chicano here on the Latino Slant. Enjoy.
Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. The Slant.
Yeah, but isn't this the unplugged version? I don't know. I think it's the unplugged version.